Welcome to Global India, a cultural fusion podcast. I am Dr. Aruna Moidu, co-host of this episode with Dr. Lily Padman. If you are going through hell, keep going. This trenchant quote is attributed to Winston Churchill, but most unfortunately could also be applicable to the reality of this last year. The year of the pandemic, such as we had never seen before, with its terrifying loss of life, fear of contracting COVID, uncertainty about the end of the pandemic, economic hardship, and severe mental, physical, and emotional stress. And in spite of multiple governments worldwide taking desperate measures to deal with the situation, each of us had to individually learn how to keep going. From dealing with the day-to-day problems caused by the pandemic itself to building our mental resilience sufficiently to cope. To discuss stress-related issues, and ways to shore our mental reserves and build our resilience in the face of this situation, I'd like to introduce two remarkable guests, Dr. Narsimha Chary and Dr. Adam Kaplan. Dr. Chary, a graduate of the Armed Forces Medical College, is an internist and a psychiatrist, a world traveler who has worked in several countries, a hobbyist winemaker and an enophile, about which he says, I am a creator, not a partaker, except in moderation. And Dr. Kaplan, a clinical psychologist and a graduate from the University of Connecticut and the American University, he takes time off from his busy work schedule to coach his town's high school varsity basketball team. He has taken the team to 3 appearances in state playoffs and won a league title. His mantra to his team is, mental strength and good game is what helps you win. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for being here. I'd like to start with Dr. Chary. Dr. Chary, I believe you were in India when the pandemic started and thereafter returned to your home base in Canada. Apart from the immediately obvious problems caused by the lockdowns, etc., the sequelae have included stress-related mental health issues and mental health crises. Mental health issues not due only to dealing with the pandemic now, but also the anxiety related to when we return to the new normal when the pandemic ends. What are the causes and signs of COVID fatigue, and how do they manifest in altered behaviors?
Thank you, Dr. Aruna Moidu, for your introduction and for inviting me to participate in this series of excellent and educational podcasts. A lot has already been said about the COVID pandemic, so I will get straight to the point. Over the past year, people went through a lot of suffering and endured huge losses. The world witnessed the rapid development of vaccines and unprecedented global vaccination efforts. Yet, somehow, the end doesn't seem in sight. Firstly, we lost a world and a way of life that we knew. People have a home, spouse, a job, good health, and a life. This is the known. Out of the blue, people were all struck by a fear of the unknown. In fact, the real fear appears to be our known world not being there anymore. People say they simply do not know what they are going to wake up to tomorrow. Unfortunately, their fears are very real and not some imagined fears. These fears indeed are personal, affecting each and every one of us. A huge portion of the world's population are bereaved, in that they have been robbed of something that they had. They have been robbed of their near and dear, their life and happiness. I must say, people rose to the occasion, showing incredible resilience. But many have reached their limit to the point of fatigue or burnout. Symptoms began to show up from constant exposure to pandemic stressors such as social distancing, isolation from family and friends, and most importantly, a fear of contracting COVID-19. What people report is they are not able to have a predictable routine, and the work from home situation is blurring the boundaries of work, leading to work fatigue and dissatisfaction. The result is mental, physical, and emotional fallout. Being isolated from others, relationship breakdowns, and sleep disturbances are driving some to reach for a drink, a cigarette, or even drugs. Survival guilt and regrets about being alive after having lost a dear one are being frequently reported. Lastly, I will only passingly mention three other areas of interest. One is the increased domestic violence against women and children, which is coming into focus. The lockdowns, the limited social service access is perpetuating this. An increase in gun possession and gun violence is being reported. Suicidal behavior and suicides are an area of worry. The shelter in place or stay at home policies may have caused or increased deaths of despair. The risk is increased by isolation, fear, abuse, and economic fallout, the same factors that increase the risk of psychiatric disorders. Aruna, I do hope these answer some of the points you raised.
My next question goes to Dr. Kaplan. Isn't the initial first step to resolving a crisis is to first acknowledge it? Could you help us understand how we can deal with this totally unprecedented situation and build our mental reserves to combat it?
Thanks, Aruna. That's a really great and a really important question. I want to start by talking about the idea of accepting the reality of what's going on. In this case, the reality of COVID, the reality of the pandemic. And that's going to kind of come up in a variety of different ways, in a variety of different impacts. There's the social reality of the situation, right? We aren't as connected to people as we'd like to be or as that we're used to being. We're not having the same types of human interactions, whether that's face-to-face, being able to express physical affection the way we want to. Okay? Those are the realities of it. There's health realities. People are getting sick. People are dying. Right? Those are the realities of what this pandemic has brought on. There's financial realities. People's wages have been hurt. Jobs have been lost. There's a huge economic impact that COVID has brought on here. And those are the things we want to actually accept as those are true. Right? We cannot do anything to change those realities. And if we get stuck in the thoughts of, well, if only this wasn't happening, or why does this have to be happening? Or I wish things were different, or I can go back to the old ways, right? Or I wish COVID never existed. All of those kinds of thoughts are going to make you feel worse and increase those negative emotional states that you were referencing before. Okay, so we want to focus more on the accepting of what's so versus being stuck in the thoughts of wishing it wasn't so. Second piece is to allow yourself to actually feel those emotions that you mentioned before: anxiety, fear, loneliness. Okay? We don't want to avoid those emotions. They're healthy emotions, and in this situation, they're valid, right? There are plenty of good reasons why we might have anxiety, plenty of good reasons that we might be fearful, right? Plenty of understandable reasons why people might be feeling lonely right now from the things we just talked about earlier. We don't want to avoid the emotions. We want to allow ourselves and what we would call kind of validate our own emotions. And that could look like saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, I'm sad right now, but I understand why I'm sad right now. There's a lot of tough things going on. It feels lonely right now? Yeah, of course I'm lonely right now. I haven't been able to see my best friend in a long time. Okay, so we don't want to feel bad about feeling bad. Okay, allow yourselves to feel whatever it is that you're feeling. In the same way we're doing that for ourselves, we want to be able to do that for other people. Okay, when you're noticing other people feeling a certain way or feeling in negative emotions, you can validate them as well and understand, yeah, like you get why they're feeling that way. Now, in terms of building reserves, right, this is really another crucial component here. Once you accept the reality that we talked about, once we validate our emotions, then we can get to the question of now what, okay? If you don't accept reality, if you don't validate your own emotions, we never get to now what. We really want to get to now what. So once we can get to the now what do we do, all right, that's where we can talk about some of the healthy things that we can focus on that are going to help build up those reserves. Okay, so there's ways to focus on your physical health, making sure you're eating healthy, sleeping appropriately, getting enough exercise. Right, now what? When it comes to your social health, okay, figuring out ways to stay connected to other people, right? A lot of people are doing virtual connections, the Zoom calls, the phone calls, the FaceTimes, right? Finding ways to stay socially connected. Intellectually, keeping healthy, stimulating your brain, reading, learning about things, trying new hobbies, right? focusing on your spiritual health in whatever form that may look like, finding meaning, okay, whether that is in your job or your family or taking this time to do some personal growth. All right, those are all things we can do that are going to build your reserve up so that, we're going to be able to feel some negative emotions and feel them in a healthy way, but we don't let them take over and control our lives.
Dr. Kaplan, as a successful coach, can you draw a parallel between coaching a team and real life, particularly in a situation like this?
Well, I definitely appreciate this question. Anytime I get a chance to kind of talk about coaching in any capacity, I definitely love to do that. So in terms of, the parallels between kind of, let's say, managing obstacles in life and coaching a team through obstacles, for me, historically, the mental part of the game it's incredibly important. Right? The teams that have been my favorite to coach are the ones that are strong and resilient mentally. That makes all the difference. They're fun to coach, right? They're inspiring to coach, and they're the successful teams. All right, so if we talk about specific parallels in this case, right, defeating COVID, let's say, is similar to defeating a really tough basketball team. Now, when I coach, right, before every game, every opponent, we kind of will put up a scouting report on the chalkboard, right, in the locker room before the game. And we'll kind of list the keys to the game, right, the things we really want to focus on that are going to make the difference between winning and losing. All right, so in this case, right, if we look at COVID as our opponent, let's say, here would be the scouting report. First thing, we want to listen to your coach. All right, find out what the trusted experts are saying. Okay, being coachable is a super important quality. It's probable that we don't know everything there is to know, right? Not every individual has the training or the knowledge or the expertise that some of the real experts in the field have. So we want to look to those experts, follow their guidance, right? Treat them as you would your coach. Listen to your coach. All right, that's the first thing. The second thing is knowing your role or knowing your assignment, right? Whether that's wearing masks, keeping social distance, taking care of your own mental health and physical health, as we discussed above, right? Understanding what is expected of you, right? And using that to focus your behavior and making sure you're handling everything you're supposed to be handling. Third key in this game is we want to make sure that fatigue is not an excuse, okay? We want to make sure that we're not letting the idea of, all right, I've been doing this for so long, or I don't have any energy left, I can't keep going, I'm going to get sloppy in my gameplay now. Right? The best teams, the winning teams, are best late in the game. Right? So I have a son who plays soccer and basketball, and we've talked about, throughout his kind of athletic career, that he tends to be at his best late in the game, the fourth quarter, right? The last 5 or 10 minutes. Because when the other kids are getting tired and maybe getting a little sloppy, he's continuing at his peak, right? Pushing himself at his highest energy. And so he's playing at his highest energy where kind of the opponents are starting to slow down. Right? That's kind of feels like where we are in this game. Right? Things are starting to slow down. We don't want to slow down with it and get kind of lazy here. We want to keep going, stay at our highest. That's going to make us most successful. Okay. Last thing in a scouting report is we want to focus on the team over the individual. Right? Understanding that you are playing more for than just yourself. You are playing for those around you. Okay, so you want to keep yourself safe, but at the same time, you want to be focused on keeping those around you, your loved ones, and even strangers. We're all part of the same community, keeping those people safe as well. All right, and lastly, in terms of the parallel, probably my favorite expression in my coaching career, and I use this phrase a lot. We talk about earning the feeling. All right, a lot of kids want to get that feeling of winning a big game or get that feeling that comes along with winning a championship. Right? Those feelings don't just automatically appear. Right? It takes work, it takes commitment, it takes doing things the right way, it takes following the scouting report. Right? If you do everything right, then you can earn that feeling of what it feels like to win, right? What it feels like to be successful. So in this case, right, you can imagine the feeling of being able to be around loved ones, being able to go to barbecues, being able to go to sporting events, whatever it is that you're looking forward to, that feeling that you want to have back. Okay, it's a great motivator. We got to earn that feeling and do what it takes, right? The steps along the way to make sure that when it's time to happen, right, when the game is on the line, we've done everything we can and we're going to set ourselves up for success.
My last question is for Dr. Chari. Dr. Chari, this pandemic has been the most catastrophic event any of us have ever witnessed in our lifetime. Can you talk a little about lessons learned and what you personally would advise your patients at a time like this?
Thank you. Winston Churchill once said, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." If we start building on and adopting changes that we all made in our personal lives and in public spaces during the past 1 year, we certainly wouldn't have wasted this crisis. Some of the valuable lessons that the world seems to have learned provide food for thought. We now know that shutdown works and hygiene helps. We also saw that we really don't need much to live. Administratively, focused action helps due to high social impact in a short period of time. As the crisis subsides, it's imperative that we should guard against going back to our philandering ways of life and social development. Telecommuting is the biggest surprise. This is almost a quantum leap of sorts and has changed our lives forever. The world learnt lessons of limitations of our medical capacities, but also discovered that we do have huge reserve capacity which rose to the occasion. One striking observation which is gratifying is even in these materially oriented times, the communities are connected and the society has a heart. As to what I have personally learned, I learned that success, money, and possessions is not everything in life. One should keep ego in check. A small, tiny virus could bring our ego, family life, giant organizations, nations, and the whole world to a standstill. Basic needs are food, water, and medicines, and not the luxuries. My advice to people is to keep up hope, to self assess, to be grateful for each day, and keep a gratitude journal, sincerely thanking all those who shared in the journey of one's life, even very briefly. My advice is also to opt out of social media with its plethora of fake news, misinformation, and disinformation. Despite being a doctor, I have learned to reach out for medical help when I felt it wise to do so. Finally, I learned that when everything is stripped away from you and the end seems near, all that matters is your family, children, and your society. Thank you.
Thank you both, Dr. Chari and Dr. Kaplan. It has been a most illuminating discussion, one vitally needed at a time when a new wave is sweeping the world and the end does not yet appear to be in sight. Thank you for being here and thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Moidu, Dr. Kaplan, and Dr. Chari for a very helpful session on coping strategies for mitigating the negative effects of COVID. We conclude this episode with some inspiring music from the great musician A.R. Rahman and a lockdown joke with a positive spin. Someone got creative and put out the following ad. Positive COVID test result available for 599 rupees. Ideal for daughters-in-law and moms looking for isolation with cooked meals served at the bedside. 1 month's subscription for Netflix is included in this package. Negative test results can also be issued for husbands so that they can do all the household chores. A total reversal of roles, not imaginable without COVID.
सलामी देते खुद से आगे जो औरों को रख पाते हम सूरज है अंधकार नहीं मानेंगे नहीं मानेंगे
हम हार नहीं मानेंगे हम हार नहीं जाए